Here are the fantasy follows. Top 5 waiver wire players to target for week 6 of fantasy football. The top player to target this week is Brandon Cooks, wide receiver from the Houston Texans. Cooks currently rostered in 44% of all leagues. Now, this was a draftable player to start the season who mysteriously has kind of disappeared up until now. But last week, 12 targets, 8 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown versus the Jaguars. That was the most targets on the team. Now, the next 4 games for Houston: Tennessee, Green Bay, then a bye, and then Jacksonville. Tennessee currently allowing the 12th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot, and Green Bay sitting at 18. So a nice run ahead for Cooks. Now, after the win over Jacksonville, Cooks and quarterback Deshaun Watson, they met with the media, and Cooks was asked what made the difference this week.
I think it was just more so we're all getting involved. It was just one of those things that I wouldn't say anything was different. The ball happened to come my way. Everyone was making plays today, and when you have that, it seemed like everything just goes well for everyone.
Deshaun, when you have one big game like this with Brandon, what can that do just for the connection between you guys moving forward? What sort of confidence can it give you and him and vice versa?
A lot of confidence, just to build, like for myself, just to be able to, rip it whenever he's playing, whenever he got a guy on him or, he's running free open, I can just rip it at him. He's going to catch it and make something happen. So, for all those guys, it just, we're very excited. You never know who can make a big play. 1 week is Will, 1 week is Cookie, 1 week is Cobb, and 1 week you can be still, or the tight end. So, we have so many weapons that can really be very, very explosive. We just got to make sure we take advantage of those times and those opportunities, for us to do that.
A lot of wide receivers on this week's list, but for me, Cooks gets the top spot, not only because of his value this week, but because of his potential value for the rest of the season. And a quick note about the waiver wire players to target. I only include players on these lists who are currently rostered in less than 50% of all leagues. So right now on this list, you do not see Justin Herbert, quarterback from the Chargers. He is currently rostered in 52% of all leagues, and we all saw what he did on Monday, so it's quite obvious that he has value for the remainder of the season at this point. By all means, if he's available in your league, go out there and get him. He is on bye this week, but certainly a player that you would want to pick up. The rest of this week's top 5. Number 2, Chase Claypool, receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, currently rostered in 17% of all leagues. Now, we had Claypool on our bonus list for week 4, so hopefully you went out and got him. If you did, you got a nice potential player in front of you at this point. Last week, 11 targets, 7 catches, 110 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 of them through the air. A big game for Claypool. Deontay Johnson was hurt last week, but with Claypool turning in such a great performance, it's hard to not see his value start to rise within that team, especially if Johnson continues to have injury problems as he has had so far this year. Now, the run of the next games for Claypool is quite nice. Next week, playing the Cleveland Browns, currently allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. And after that, Tennessee, Baltimore, Dallas. Tennessee at 12, Baltimore at 17, Dallas at 3. So the combination of his potential and the run of games makes him the number 2 on this list. Number 3 is Alexander Mattison, running back for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, last week we saw Dalvin Cook injured. Mattison picked up 20 rushes for 112 yards versus Seattle. Cook is expected to miss week 6, and that game is versus the Atlanta Falcons, who are giving up the 9th most fantasy points to the running back spot. After that, Minnesota has a bye, so you may only have Mattison for 1 week, but it's typically so difficult to find good value at the running back spot. It makes Mattison a pickup whether or not you have Cook on your roster or not. Number 4, Travis Fulgham, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, currently rostered in 3% of all leagues. Now, with Philadelphia's injuries, Fulgham stepped up last week. 13 targets, 10 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown. Certainly, if the Eagles continue to have these injury problems, he can return you value. The run of the next games for Philadelphia is Baltimore, the Giants, Dallas, and then a bye. Baltimore at 17 to the wide receiver spot, the Giants at 13, and Dallas at 3 in terms of fantasy points allowed. So a nice run as well. And number 5 is Mike Williams for the LA Chargers, currently rostered in 40% of all leagues. This is another player who was certainly draftable at the start of the season, but has had injury problems. This past week on Monday night, 8 targets, 5 catches, 109 yards with 2 touchdowns. Certainly a great game for Williams and a great welcome back. Now, he is on bye this week, so that's why he's a little bit lower on this list. But after that, they have Jacksonville, Denver, and the Raiders. Jacksonville at 23rd to the wide receiver spot, so they're in the bottom half. But the following week, Denver is at 5. So Williams, a great player to target this week. The bonus ads for this week, starting it off with Justin Jackson, running back for the LA Chargers. Now, we had Jackson on last week's top 5s, but he is still only rostered in 44% of all leagues. And in the Monday night game versus the Saints, 15 rushes, 71 yards. He clearly looked like the better performer to Joshua Kelly, and he outtouched him 20-12. He also had 6 targets for 5 catches, adding 23 yards there. Now, the Chargers are on a bye this week, so that's why Jackson does not crack our top 5, but he is certainly a player to roster, considering Austin Eckler is still going to miss time, and their run of games after the bye, Jacksonville, Denver, and the Raiders. Jacksonville currently allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the running back spot. Denver the 3rd fewest, but then the Raiders are the most. So a nice run of games. Jackson has shown promise in that backfield, and if that continues, he can give you some nice value. Henry Ruggs for the Raiders, currently rostered in 44% of all leagues. Now, he had a big game this past week, 118 yards and a touchdown versus Kansas City. Only 3 targets, 2 catches, but this was his first game back from injury, so you could expect that he may work his way back into the offense more moving forward. Again, the Raiders on bye this week, so Ruggs did not crack the top 5. But after that, his run, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, and the Chargers. Tampa Bay currently sitting at 21st to the wide receiver spot, but Cleveland number 2 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the wide receivers. So a decent run. Look for Ruggs on your waiver wire. Laviska Shenault, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, currently rostered in 34% of all leagues. Now, he has stepped up as a secondary receiver behind DJ Chark there in Jacksonville. 8 targets last week, led the team, and he has had 70 or more total yards in 3 of his last 4 games. His run, Detroit, the Chargers, bye, and then Houston. Detroit currently allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the wide receiver spot. And Andy Dalton, we all saw that awful injury to Dak Prescott. Dalton is currently rostered in 3% of all leagues. Certainly this week with buys, you have Russell Wilson and Drew Brees both out, and 2 potential replacements in Justin Herbert and Derek Carr also on bye. So that makes Dalton the potential pickup. And his run of games, Arizona, Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Arizona sitting at 17th in terms of points allowed to the quarterback spot. So just in the bottom half, but Washington is at 8. So some decent games coming up for Dalton. You might be able to play him for more than 1 week. But certainly if you need somebody to replace a bye this week, he is a good option. Don't forget to join us for the TFF Live Sunday pregame show, streaming live every Sunday right here on our YouTube channel at 12 noon and taking you right up until game time to get you ready for your fantasy matchups each week. And here's where you can find us. We are the Fantasy Follow. We are brand new. We appreciate you watching our videos. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and share. Please leave us your comments below and let us know if there are players that you feel should be on these lists. And we have a new subscriber goal of 100 subscribers by week 7. So please help us reach our goal. Go ahead and click that subscribe button now. You can find us on Twitter at the Fantasy Follow. That's spelled FNTSY. And don't forget, if you would like, you can leave us your lineup questions on Twitter using the hashtag AskTFFLive, and we'll answer those questions live on our Sunday show. On Facebook, /The Fantasy Follow, and our website, thefantasyfollow.com.